How y'all doing, tool users? Today, this episode, we will be talking about safety gear. Um, Something I probably should have went over a little bit earlier in the series than now, but I guess there's no better time than ever to go over it. So, safety gear is important. When you're working in a shop and working outside and running mowers and working on cars and doing whatever, this gear here will help protect your body and will just help protect you in general. So this stuff's important. Knowing when to use what is important as well. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start over here with these gloves and these goggles. So I'm going to start on the gloves first. These are just general work gloves. They kind of protect your hand from getting blisters and stuff if you're like maybe like using a shovel or, you know, digging or doing yard work, pulling weeds out of a garden, whatever. That's a pretty good use for this stuff. They'll protect your hands from minor cuts, not anything big. They're not designed to, you know, really stop a sharp knife or anything like that. They might stop it a little bit, but you're still going to get cut, so be aware of, you know, where you're cutting. But they'll kind of help with, like, you know, pricker bushes and little small cuts and blisters and whatnot. Now, I'll tell you, gloves are important to wear when you're in those situations, but there is also situations you don't want to wear gloves. And some of those situations would be using something like a drill press or a lathe or any kind of machine that spins on its own. Because what will happen is you might be working on a piece of something to stick your hand in. Well, that glove might catch on the drill bit in like a drill press, and then it sucks your hand into the machine. So you don't want that. You'd rather just get a little minor cut or nick on your finger than getting your whole hand sucked into the machine. So anytime you're working around any kind of tool that has a spinning mechanism to it that's, you know, stationary, things like maybe like a bench grinder or a drill press, a lathe, anything of that nature, you don't want to use these kind of gloves. It's dangerous. It's better just to not use gloves at all. And you know, if you get a little nick or whatever, at least it's not going to suck your hand into the machine. So moving on, I don't have a clear pair. I couldn't find one in a hurry. But goggles are important as well. So if you're doing any kind of drilling with the drill press, or, you know, cutting with the saw, or, you know, using an angle grinder on some metal, actually, with an angle grinder, you might want to think about a whole face shield instead of just glasses. It will help better. But you want to wear goggles. Your eyes, you only get one pair of them. You know, these will protect your eyes from getting little bits of wood when you're using a saw in them, or, you know, little pieces of metal when you're using a drill press on metal, or a grinder, or a bench grinder, or whatever. Wear them. Don't, you know, take the fast way out and just go and grind on something real quick and then, you know, hope that you don't get something in your eye. Take the couple seconds it takes to put these on. You know, all it takes is one little piece of metal getting in your eye to mess you up for the rest of your life. So that's something important. I don't have a clear pair. These neon colored pairs is actually for finding AC leaks. If you're got like dye in there, you can use an ultraviolet light and find AC leaks on an AC, any kind of like automotive AC system. These stain ones here are kind of for like using a torch. Again, this ain't the best thing for using a torch. You kind of want a face shield, you know, that has tint to it, you know, for using a torch. It's better than nothing. Moving on from there, have some hearing protection. This is important. Your hearing, you know, it doesn't generally go bad all at once. You lose your hearing over years and years of loud noises that you're exposed to for prolonged periods of time. So the higher the decibel of the machine you're using, and the longer you're using it without hearing protection, the more damage that's done to your hearing. And you're not going to notice this It happens so slowly that you don't notice it almost until it's too late, years and years later. So you want to preserve your hearing. Anytime you're on something loud, put it on. If you're on a mower, put them on. If you're using a weed eater or a blower, put them on. You know, if you're running an impact gun, you know, some of them get pretty loud, put it on. Any kind of loud noises, you want to put these on so you don't damage your hearing, especially if you're doing something for a long period of time, like mowing or weed eating or blowing leaves. That's it's pretty critical you put them on. Preserve your hearing. You know, when you're 60 years old, you want to be able to hear instead of, you know, not being able to hear and having to go huh over and over. I knew somebody that I worked with at one time, and he had lost some of his hearing, and it was hard to have a conversation with the man because he would constantly ask what you said over and over and over because he couldn't hear. It was unfortunate. I guess he didn't wear his hearing protection as much as he ought to have. But anyhow, moving on. Steel toe shoes. These come in various shapes and flavors and sizes and whatnot, and some boots have a tall ankle guard and some are low cut. These low cut ones are, you know, great for summertime, and you know, they're lighter weight than the tall ones, but they're not going to protect your ankle as much. So if you're in an environment where you might graze your leg across a piece of metal, it's better to have the tall ones. Now the steel toe is built into it. You can feel it. I'm sure you can't feel it there at YouTube, but I can feel it. It's there to protect stuff from falling on your toe and cutting your toes off. So anytime you're working around something heavy, you know, jacking up a car or working, you know, with heavy pieces of metal or moving things, like, I would even think somebody that's moving something heavy ought to consider this. You know, if you're moving a box that's got some metal stuff in it that's pretty heavy, and you drop that box and a piece of metal falls on your toe, and you just happen to have sandals on or a non-steel toe shoe, you might injure your foot. So something to think about. If there's a danger of something heavy falling on your foot, that's the time to wear these. Now some of these shoes actually have metal liners on the inside, on the bottom, to where if you step on a nail, it's not going to pierce the bottom of the shoe. You'll have to look at the manufacturers and see what they offer. There's been some other YouTubers that have done some testing on boots and shoes and whatnot. Might be worth it to go watch their videos. I'll point one out. Project Farm is one of them. He's pretty good about testing things like this. He's got a great YouTube channel. I've learned a lot from him. But yeah, wear your steel toe shoes. You know, anytime you're working around something that's gonna fall, do it. I brought the jack stand out. It's more of like a tool, I would say, but it's a safety thing. You jack up a car to work under it, you never want to work directly under the jack. You always want to put these jack stands up and run them to the car where the car can rest on this. You know, the frame of the car or whatever can rest on the top, and then the car has no possibility of falling unless you put it on lopsided. You know, you want to make sure that the footing of this is good, that it's on concrete, or maybe a board if you're working like grass. You know, a lot of people will use like a piece of metal, a flat plate of metal, or like a board underneath. Again, use it at your own risk. I'm not advising you to do anything, but I am advising you to use this tool. It might save you. There have been instances of people working under cars and the car will fall on them after a jack fails and crush them to death. It only takes a couple seconds to put one under a car and rest the car on it, so you don't have to worry about the car falling on you. To me, that's worth, you know, the time it takes to put it out versus the risk that if something happens, you know, you might die. So moving on, last thing here, we got a welding shield and some welding gloves. These gloves are specifically designed to where if you get a hot piece of metal that lands on them, it won't burn your hands. It's also going to protect your hands from getting burnt too. They make shirts and sleeves and stuff that are leather like this too, so if you're welding under something you can wear those and that'll protect you better. You know, always wear your shield. What happens when you weld, it produces a very bright arc, and it can, what a lot of people call it is flash you. What it's akin to is sunburning your eyes. You can burn the retina in your eyes with a welding arc if you're not using a welding shield that darkens. Or, you know, they have ones that are already dark. You know, check them. Make sure there's a little battery in this thing somewhere. Yeah, in there. Make sure it's working correctly. See, this one has weld and grind. You could use it for grinding. It's got different sensitivity and different shades, so you can use it, you know, depending on the brightness of the weld. You can adjust that. But this is going to protect your eyes. Again, it goes along with these here. You only got one pair of eyes. You can mess up your eyes real bad welding without a shield. Real bad. Like where you won't have vision for the rest of your life bad. Use this. Don't try it without it. Don't try it with, you know, half steps. Don't try it with little shaded, you know, sunglasses and whatnot. It doesn't do the same. Again, this is a basic video, so a lot of you probably know this stuff, but I'm going over it for the people that don't, that might be getting into this kind of stuff. Anyhow, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm getting around, you know, a little bit over the 10-minute mark here. I try to keep these videos around 10 minutes, short and sweet and to the point. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you.